Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today I've got to talk about something that I hope will be interesting to you. I'd love to hear your comments on this down below. I've got three knives here that are all fantastic. This is the CJRB Feldspar. This is the Civivi Exarch. This is the Civivi Asticus. Horrible name, I know. But nonetheless, all of these I like quite a bit. The action is enjoyable on all of them. The quality, the fit and finish, all the things that we look for in a knife are really pretty darn well done. And the materials are pretty decent as well. And all of these land in a pretty reasonably affordable price point. None of these are really, really expensive knives. And so these knives and many, many, many others stand out as examples of the fact that, you can get some really, really good stuff at a pretty reasonable price point. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get something that's really enjoyable, that has great action, that has decent materials, that has good fit and finish. And this has been a theme in the knife world for a while now. Now, in contrast to that, we have also done quite a bit of complaining. Certainly myself and many others have complained about materials, about quality control, about action, about a number of other things that some US producers seem to do in an effort to keep the price point down. So, I think of especially last year and the year before and the last few years of CRKT knives and Buck knives and SOGs and Kershaws, and we've been really pointing out that, look, unless you guys change, the overseas producers are really going to surpass you, and we're just not going to care what you're doing anymore. Now, here's the major fly in the ointment that we have to bring up to have this discussion with any, I don't know, sense of real expectations, okay? There's a huge issue here, which is companies that are selling in Walmart and in Bass Pro and in Target and Dick's Sporting Goods and a number of other sort of big box type of department store type of deals. Their customers don't have the same expectations for a knife that I have and that all of you watching have. Okay, they're going to walk into Walmart. They're going to be like, I've got $30 or something to spend on a knife. They're not going to watch any reviews. They're not going to know anything about blade steel or action or materials or anything like that. They're just going to walk in, they're going to look for a design that they think is cool, and they're going to buy it. Okay. And in fact, I've had a couple of industry insiders say to me where I've had an opportunity to ask them, what makes a successful model, because I'd seen knives that the knife community really, really loved kind of go away. And I thought, well, that felt pretty successful, but it's weird. And so someone was kind enough to tell me, look, Kevin, all that matters is whether or not you're carried in Walmart. Okay, if your knife model gets picked up by Walmart, it's going to sell a lot. And if it doesn't, then it's not going to sell that many, and you're probably going to have to discontinue it. Okay, so and there are stories, the Spyderco Native, for by all accounts, that was essentially designed and built purposely to be a Walmart sold knife. Okay, so that whole discussion is kind of difficult, okay, because it means that companies like all the ones we've been talking about, Gerber and SOG and Kershaw and CRKT, all the typical big box store type companies, they don't have to care that much about making good knives. They just have to care about getting them on the shelves at Walmart. And that probably has more to do with price point than any other single characteristic of the build, whether it be materials or quality or anything else. Okay. And because of that, these companies can essentially ignore the knife community. They really don't have to care anything for what we say, because we're not a large enough group to impact their bottom line very much. And, they try to maintain, I think, a level of presence in the knife community by coming up with something good every so often. But outside of that, they just don't have to care. Now, on the other hand, the Chinese manufacturers have to care. They really have to care, because only the knife community knows about them, and they're doing things that only the knife community is going to notice, right? You don't see Civivi knives in Walmart. Now, at least Amazon, right, makes some difference, but you're not going to see CJRB Compete and Civivi and Best Tech and you know, a number of others that we could list. Too many to count, honestly, at this point. You're not going to see those companies in Walmart. And so they've got to make their sales essentially to the knife community, all right, or to what, the periphery maybe of the knife community, people who are at least listening to some reviews and doing a little bit of research before they buy. And what they've got to do is beat all of these other sort of more mainstream companies at their own game. They've got to produce better knives for lower prices in order to hang. And that has been a huge benefit to consumers because we can buy this stuff and really, really get a fantastic cutting tool for very, very reasonable prices. Okay. And all of these stand out as pretty good examples of that, and many, many more could be listed. Okay. Now there are some others, right? There are some sort of standard bearer models, something like, say, the Rat Model 1 or the Spyderco Tenacious, where Spyderco is, you know, doing something pretty good. But outside of those options, there are fairly few. You know, CRKT doesn't have a lot of models on that list. Neither does Kershaw or a number of others. Okay, but I say all of this, and I know we're 6 minutes into this discussion to say perhaps there's hope. Okay, maybe there's a chance that someone other than Civivi will deliver me a great action for less than $50. Okay, maybe there's a hope that I don't have to wait for the next feldspar. And I've got to say this, guys, I'm going to pick on CGRB a little bit here. I don't love most of their designs. I don't love most artisan designs either. There's a couple that I don't hate. That's about it. Now the feldspar is really, really good. This is the best thing that they have done, and it's really stinking impressive. I have to, you know, give it a lot of credit. Okay. Civivi has tons of models that I've really enjoyed. And the other companies, you know, Best Tech, and I don't know, there's a bunch of other ones now like Kirby and Yabo, and I don't even know. I'm not in love with most of their models, and I just can't do it. Okay, I can't follow every single overseas producer. However, let me bring in a knife that is going to kind of throw this whole discussion on its head and make me a little bit hopeful for US producers. Okay, and so if anyone from like CRKT or Gerber or anything else is watching this, and I will say I think Gerber is making a run, and I think SOG is making a run to make some adjustments, make some changes, and come out strong. And here's the primary thing that I think this video is going to boil down to. I'm going to say it now and I'll re-say it at the end. If you worry about making good knives with good materials, okay, worry about that first before you worry about selling them. You will do way better, right? And that's true of any industry. And this often happens with larger companies. You know, I don't care whether you're a window manufacturer, you know, and I've seen it with roofing companies. I work in construction quite a bit, and I've seen it with roofing companies and siding companies, and you know, any company that starts to get really, really big, they tend to stop caring as much about the quality of their work. You know, when the owner of the company is right there on site doing everything, you know, often you get very, very good results. But companies that end up having, you know, 15 trucks on the road and a bunch of crews run by foremen, it starts to get pretty sketchy in a lot of cases. Okay, and the same is true in the knife industry. You know, I'm sure that at some point, you know, Buck and Kershaw and CRKT and many other knife companies that we could name came out of the gate wanting to make awesome knives. And at some point they realized that, hey, in order to make a lot of money, I don't have to make awesome knives. I can cut a lot of corners, and you know, because of our well-known name and because of a few other things, people will just buy this stuff. Okay. And now, okay, when we have some competition, now let me be clear about one thing. I've got to take a little aside here and point out, we're talking about all overseas produced stuff, okay? I'm not talking about USA made versus Taiwan made versus, I don't know, Germany, China, Japan, whatever, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about all the companies, and all the companies that I've mentioned they have, factories in China producing their knives for them, shipping them over here, and then they sell them. So we're not talking about, right, like this is made in China, this is made in China, this is made in China. So we're comparing apples to apples here. Okay, all of these people are taking advantage of, the Chinese manufacturing capacity and the cheap labor over there, but they're not consistently delivering the same thing. That's where this is going. Okay, so along comes the Kershaw Tumbler. And I have got to say, guys, the Tumbler is really, really impressive. And it has a lot to do with the fact that it has borrowed many of the principles that the overseas producers use. Okay, so let's deliver a great action. Let's not use HCR13 MOV. Let's produce something that feels pretty nice in hand, but again, has a fantastic action. The action is the primary thing here that stands out, as well as the blade shape, D2 steel. Essentially, we have something very much like, okay, the feldspar. We have something very much like the Asticus. We have something very much like the Exarch. All of these have G10, D2, bearing pivots, and phenomenal action, and it makes them very enjoyable. Now, if you don't like the bearing pivot, there are other options available to you. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a different video. But Kershaw seems almost to have taken a page from what the overseas producers are doing and said, hey, let's make a knife that's got great action, that's got a little bit of interesting design, and see where we can go with it. And they really have, I think, produced something that can compete with what Civivi is doing, what Bestech is doing, what Artisan is doing, and what some of the other overseas, Real Steel and Reich, are doing. This is truly excellent and enjoyable, and really Kershaw deserves a ton of credit for doing this. Now, I know the price point on this is a little high, and they've got a bit of carbon fiber to add a flourish. They've got the subframe lock, which I think is really nice, and this is the advantage that I believe some of these companies have. They've got some really nice proprietary stuff. They've got great relationships with designers. If they would just take those things that they really do well and add what these guys are doing, which is really spectacular quality, fit and finish, and action, and of course, responding a little better to the marketplace. And I have to say, I've had some overseas companies where I've talked to them about something, and they're like, "Hey, we're on it. We're fixing this right away," and to me, that's really refreshing to see companies that are, that understand, hey, if we want to be successful, we've got to listen to consumers. Some of the other companies, and perhaps they're just too big, whatever the case may be, perhaps there's an American corporate attitude, which is more, hey, we're going to tell them what to like, and then we're going to sell it to them. And that seems to be the current model for American corporations, where at least China has the politeness to say, hey, we're going to ask them what they like, and then we're going to sell it to them. Okay, and that's all I ask. Like I'm not anti-capitalism. I'm not anti-corporation. I get that businesses exist to make money. I'm not opposed to any of that. But from the standpoint of a knife enthusiast, I just want knife companies to make good stuff. And I think some of them are learning. I should have brought one of my SOGs because it would have fit well into this. But SOG has definitely turned over a new leaf. If you look at the models that they're using now, I feel like they couldn't figure out how to respond to Benchmade, and they kind of got obsessed with that lock and couldn't get past the arc lock, which was not a great lock, and the fake arc lock was even worse. All right, but this knife is spectacular. It has action every bit as good as any Civivi that I've ever handled. And I have many times in my videos said, Civivi's got the best action of budget knives going. And, the Tumbler here is kind of making me eat my words, because it is truly fantastic. It's a highly enjoyable knife. And so here's how I want to conclude this. I know I've been rambling a little bit and I brought up a lot of different stuff, but the point that I want to make here is that I think Kershaw has nailed something here. And if they would take this same model, have a good designer that's well reputed, make sure it's got great action and a really nice, really good performance, really good fit and finish, which they have done on the Tumbler here, they will do well. And so, this is not an overly intricate, difficult knife, but this has got to be one of the coolest things that Kershaw has done in the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. It's really, really impressive. And I think because in some ways they're finally responding a little bit to the pressure placed on the market by the overseas producers. Okay. Now look, guys, I know I know there's a climate politically right now in which, it's tempting to get into all kinds of stuff. And look, I'm with you on the fact that China does not play this by the same rules as the rest of the world. They tend to manipulate things. The party is first and foremost in all things, even if it means killing their own citizens, even if it means, Tiananmen Square, whatever the case may be. The Communist Party must succeed at all cost, and China must be the most powerful nation in the world at all cost. And so there's a difference there. We talk about the global village. China's like, no global village. It's a global dictatorship run by China. Okay, I get that. I'm fully aware of the politics of this whole thing, but my discussion here is focused on the knives that are being made and the quality of them and what they're delivering to consumers. And frankly, the overseas companies, especially Civivi and Riot and a couple of others, are delivering fantastic stuff to consumers. And I'm unapologetically a fan of that. Okay, so. In conclusion, what I hope to see is that, look, other companies see what Kershaw did and they go, man, the Kershaw Tumbler was great. Why can't we do that? Well, you can do that. If you're SOG or Buck or Gerber or CRKT or whoever else, whatever other, brand, even Charade, and Charade has completely gone off the rails at this point to where I don't even know if they make knives anymore. They're just a complete failure. Um, but having said all that, the Kershaw Tumbler gives me hope. It makes me think that maybe American manufacturers or American companies, they're not manufacturing, they're getting the manufacturing done and selling through. So, but it makes me hope that sometimes that these sort of more well-known companies will get a clue. And if we saw, 4 models that were something like this from Kershaw next year, what a win that would be. And if we saw 1 or 2 models from CRKT that were like this, not exactly like this, but following this same model, right? Great action, decent materials at a decent price. It would be so great for the industry to have these companies kind of on the playing field again. Okay, so there you go, guys. That's my take on the Kershaw Tumbler and its role in the marketplace and why I think it's more significant than just one good model from Kershaw. I think it may represent a turning point and a new way of some of these guys competing with the overseas stuff. Okay, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out those links in the description box. That does help the channel. We'll talk to you soon.